But the abuse started between kind of 6 and 7. Uh, and it was regular. And it went on till I was 15. I tried to kill myself. I'm now 7. That's the first time I tried to kill myself. I'm kind of screaming inside, but I'm playing outside and laughing and having fun and
Mm.
confusion, real confusion. What I've realized kind of later in life, is it's like, it's not, you don't want to die, you just want what's happening to stop. I know, I didn't have to, I chose to. I chose to forgive because my anger was was burning me up.
Welcome, Brian. It's so lovely to have you here in New Zealand, Aotearoa. Um, and I'm really thrilled to have you on the light dump. It's fantastic for kicking off this series that I'm doing this year called the Surrender Series, which is very much part of the spiritual ethos of the light dump, but it's just a little more focused. And today we are talking about your life. And I just want to start off by saying, just right now, we live in times at this very moment, I think you'll agree, when disclosure, particularly of child abuse, is at an all-time height.
Yeah.
And and it's honestly quite terrifying what's coming out. It's kind of like, oh my goodness. But it's time.
Yeah.
And I would love it if you would share with us your story and why it's important for you to be doing this now.
I, it's interesting. I wasn't looking at doing this, but our paths have crossed. So I thought it's an opportunity. It's an opportunity for me to tell my story. But it's also an opportunity for me to move on, I think. It's quite important that kind of thing. Actually, it's logged somewhere, so I don't have to keep repeating it. So I can send people there in some ways. Uh, so I think it's important. And at the moment I'm just traveling and I wanted to, I suppose, enjoy my life, and I want to move away from this period of my life, which I have done quite a lot, but I think it's been coming up as I've been traveling. It's been because it's part of me, but I want to try and kind of move away from it and live my life and enjoy the life that I'm living now. So yeah.
Yeah, it's so important. And I think the whole thing, I mean, we discussed the other day, is this is an ongoing healing, if you like. And
Yeah.
yeah, and just living, putting one step in front of the other, waking up every day is part of how you are living with it and getting well beyond it too.
Hmm.
So let's start off. You were born in the UK, and tell us a little bit about where you're from, your family, and what happened.
So I'm from the UK. I was brought up in a small mining community in Derbyshire. If people know the UK, Derbyshire, just on the outskirts of Derbyshire. And it was a small, very small village. I always had a little village primary school to it. And yeah, it was nice. Everybody knew each other, kids played, and kind of my memory of this village was quite a happy time, and until things changed, and I kind of go back to between 6 and 7. In my house there, I am one of four. I have an older sister, an older brother, and a younger brother. Uh, None of the others were abused, only myself.
Okay.
And I think what's interesting for me when I kind of when I look back at that life, when I was at school, I always enjoyed. playing with the girls. I always enjoyed the dressing up box. I was never interested in the boys playing the football and all of that. And I think it was quite clear then I was gay, but it was very much I was quite happy just enjoying that kind of life. And I don't know whether that's why I was targeted or not, because none of my other siblings were targeted. So there was my mum and my stepdad. Now, he came into my life when I was 6 months old, so I'm just going to refer to him as my dad because I've not known my dad. My mum left him when I was kind of 6 months old, so I didn't have that experience. But the abuse started between kind of 6 and 7, uh, and it was regular, and it went on till I was 15. The majority of it happened within the house, and it was either in the bathroom or the living room. Uh, and it's it's difficult because at that age you don't have words. You don't have words. So the first time was happened actually in a garage. We had a garage, and he took me into the garage and uh, encouraged me to kind of start touching him. Now, there was not a lot of love in my house. My mum was quite cold. My mum had quite a difficult upbringing herself, and and again, you find out this later, and you
Mm,
start putting all
mm,
sense to it. But at the time, the she wasn't a hugger. She wasn't somebody who loved. She was somebody who was just coping for herself. She was just coping. So you had these four children, very little emotional input, and then suddenly I'm kind of being encouraged to touch, but I'm also being told it's a secret, and there's an excitement to that. There's a kind of excitement of I've got something that my siblings don't have, uh, and So, so there was this sense that I have this secret, and there's some intimacy that I'm getting touched. I'm kind of,
mm,
but instantly I knew I didn't like it. But what I'm not sure about is at this time what I don't like because there's no words to this. So I don't know
mm,
what element of
mm,
this that I don't like, but I know that I don't like it, and I know that because I tried to kill myself. Uh,
Oh
I
gosh, what age were you at this time?
I'm now 7. That's the first time I tried to kill myself. And when I say tried to kill myself, I stood in the kitchen with a bread knife with a point on it and pushing it into my stomach and tried to push it into my stomach. So there's these feelings going on that I'm not liking, but I'm not really sure what that's about. Uh, and I don't feel I can say anything because it's a kind of a secret. And this,
Mm,
you know, I don't know how often it happened, but it was happening. It was happening, and I remember a few times in the garage. What was really interesting was the smell in the garage, the smell of petrol. There was a real strong smell of petrol. And whenever I got in a car, I would be sick. I would be physically sick. We couldn't leave the estate without me being sick. So there was a real kind of
mm.
emotional kind of link to this smell. And it took me a long time to be able to travel without being kind of physically sick. The other thing I remember happening is I had a best friend. My best friend lived over the other side of the road. And you'd say it was a small village, there weren't lots of cars. We played out in the street a lot. And I packed my bags and I'm pulling my case down the stairs and my mum said, where are you going? And I said, I'm going to go and live at Mrs. Evans. I don't want to live here anymore. And I'm pulling my case and she's letting me go. And at the time, Mrs. Evans is also at her gate. We can see her gate and we can see our gate. And my mum said, oh, he's coming to live with you. He's coming over to live with you. And I'm in the middle of the road. And she said, no, I don't want you. No, no, I don't want you. You need to go back. You need to go back home. So I then kind of go back. And that night, I remember we're all sat around the table and we're having cream cake, which was very unusual for us. We don't do cream cake. And my dad saying to me, would you rather have cream cake or would you rather live at Mrs. Evans? And I said, I'd rather live at Mrs. Evans. I'd rather go. So even though there was a very clear, I'm not happy, it didn't stop.
Nobody listened to you. Nobody inquired. They saying, "Why did you want to leave?"
Yeah, that's,
Nobody. Mm.
yeah, it was no, 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 yeah. Uh, yeah, so that kind of went on. And then we moved house when I was 8, which was quite traumatic for me because I was already kind of starting with this anxiety within me, and then all of a sudden we move and we go to a different village. Wasn't that far away, still social housing, still a pit village, and but I have to change schools. I have to start a new school, and I have to start making new friends, which I didn't find, you know, easy. But what happened was I arrived at this village, and before school started, it was the school holidays, and I remember sitting at home. My siblings were all out. I don't know where they were, and I'm sitting at home. My parents are at work, so I'm in the house on my own. And there's a knock on the door, and there's one of the kids from the village saying, "You outside, I want to fight." And that
Oh,
was the welcome to the village. That was my welcome. And I'm like, I don't want to fight, not interested in fighting. And it was like, yeah, yeah. So I'd shut the door and he kind of came back, bang, 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 bang. And then, so I went out and I had this fight. Unfortunately, I won. So suddenly my standing in the community went from 0 to 10. Because I really don't know what it would have been like if I'd have lost that fight. But yeah, yeah. So that was
oh my
that was
gosh.
the village. That was my life.
Was
Yeah,
that the first physical kind of fight you'd ever had?
I think so. Yeah,
Mm.
yeah, I think so. And maybe it was the anger coming out from what was happening. Yeah, but we moved and the abuse just continued. The abuse just continued, and
It would always be when nobody was else but you two were at home, clearly.
it was mainly the bathroom. So because we had a big household, it was much more we shared the bath water. So he would be in the bath and then I would get called up to the bathroom. So it was uh that was the yeah, yeah. So other people would be in the house. It was there in the house.
Brian, I want to ask you just how did that feel for you to be that isolated in a crowded house? You know.
It it was really interesting. I remember having nightmares. I remember having lots of nightmares at that time. Uh, and the nightmares were based in the house, and the nightmares was going up to the stairs, going upstairs, or the monster was at the stairs, and I remember that happening. We weren't a close family because I think because of my mum and how my mum reacted. I remember I had a friend and I would go around to my friend's house and he had two sisters and they were always arguing, always arguing. And I remember saying to him, "Oh, we don't argue in our house. We're not close enough." And I had that realization that this there was something wrong within the house.
Mm.
Uh, so I didn't have a closeness with my siblings. There wasn't a closeness. I didn't really have a closeness to my parents as well. So I remember just being suicidal, being suicidal. I had an action man. I would talk to my action man, uh, but I would often sit in the bathroom with a razor blade and putting it at my wrist, and just wanting to cut my wrist. And that was a kind of period before kind of secondary school. So from about 8 to 11, we lived in that house. And so I remember very often sitting and wanting to die, wanting to kind of kill myself. Uh, but on the flip side of it, I also did make friends, and so I had friends. So I would go out and I would play like any of the children, and so there was this real kind of incongruence of I'm
Dual life almost
yes,
that you're living.
yes,
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
I'm kind of screaming inside, but I'm playing outside and laughing and having fun, and
Mm, mm.
yeah, yeah, confusion, real confusion. But I also remember consciously when I kind of got a bit older, not telling my mum. I'm not going to tell her because I don't want to hurt her. So it was okay for me to keep enduring this because I couldn't hurt my mum. So, as difficult as my mum was, I love my mum, you know,
Mm,
as,
mm.
just they as my parents, but I loved my mum. And I didn't want to hurt her. I didn't want to hurt her. But I also created if I did tell her, she would protect me. So I kind of created this, but I can't do it because I can't hurt her. Yeah.
Right. These internal conversations, if you like, we all have them in our head. Um, must have been, and you use the word confusing, and the confusion of this going on in your life, living as dual kind of existence, having to keep quiet, but having to, on the outside, be okay, be lovely Brian. Um, what did that do to you? I mean, how was schooling and learning, and how was that going?
It wasn't. I think now we would say uh post-traumatic stress. I'm in fight flight mode right now because I am constantly just trying to survive, just trying to kind of keep my head,
Yeah.
above. So going to school, so primary school, uh, I couldn't spell. I couldn't spell, and I couldn't retain any information.
Mm,
So learning was difficult, but that didn't really come into play until I got to secondary school. So where there was an expectation of learning and
mm.
regurgitating and doing, exams and stuff,
Exams.
I couldn't do it. And so at the time when I was at school, we had a remedial department, and it was like I was in the remedial department because I just couldn't do it. I couldn't. My writing and spelling and it just. So I left school with no formal qualifications. I left school feeling I was stupid, because I couldn't learn.
Do you think on reflection that you were dyslexic, or in fact that the I'm giving it that title too, that's that or this was purely a symptom of what you were going through?
Oh, without a doubt, a symptom, without a doubt. And I think there's some research saying that people who have kind of dyslexia usually have some kind of trauma as well. So this is kind of starting to come out, but there's no doubt is I was just trying to survive. So my body is just in fight flight at this time. But I think the other thing that kind of, we then hit puberty.
Mm,
For me, then I'm going to secondary school and I'm hitting puberty. And then then the realization, because prior to this, I don't have the language. I don't know what's happening. I don't, there's this is what happens in families. This is what happens. I don't know
mm,
anything different. But around about kind of that 11, 12, like, oh, actually, no, this is not right. This is, and then there's a name for it. There's incest comes in. And then I kind of suddenly realize that's what's happening to me.
mm,
But I'm in it now. I'm now 12. This has been going on
mm,
since then. I'm in a pattern now of this. And also what was really interesting was the way my body would respond. So, the whole Pavlov's dog kind of situation of, I would be called up to the bedroom, I would be getting up to the bathroom, I would be getting undressed to go into the bathroom, and I would have an erection,
mm, mm.
because
Yeah.
it's like, and I'm trying to stop this happening, but so there's the whole programming of this going on. But I think what was also for me at this time is my suicidal thoughts, my suicidal ideation. And I think I was probably about 12 when I first took an overdose.
Mm,
And it was, I took paracetamols, I was at home, so my parents worked, everybody's at school. I've taken the day off school because nobody knows I'm going to take the day off school and I'm going to take these paracetamols. And there was no doubt I wanted to die. I took them and I laid down and I just wanted to go to sleep.
mm,
And then I just started vomiting. I just vomited it all back up. And I was just so disappointed.
mm.
So disappointed. But every time that and it's mainly overdoses I've taken, there's always been a sense of, yeah, I just want this to stop.
Mm.
Now, what I've realized kind of later in life, is it's like, it's not, you don't want to die, you just want what's happening to stop. It's
Yeah.
not
Yeah.
suicidal. If that had stopped, I wouldn't have been suicidal.
Yeah.
Uh, but what happened was I couldn't also develop my sexuality. I couldn't when I hit puberty, then I I was not attracted to anybody. There was
Yeah.
no
Yeah.
attraction to anybody. So I would have girlfriends, but there was never a desire for that. And as I grew older, I was not interested in relationships.
Mm,
And I remember one scenario of being in a party. I'm probably about 15, still at school, and we're drinking, and one of the girls takes me into a bedroom. And we tried to have sex, and there's nothing happening. at all.
Okay.
My body is just not responding at all. Uh, and yeah, it's not. I'm not conscious of it. I'm not conscious of what sexuality is, and at that time I would never have, I didn't know I was gay. Didn't know because all of that had been so deeply buried. Yeah, it was
Yeah.
a really difficult time.
So you've got this. Oh gosh, now you're probably being really quiet about that. You know.
Well, you can't speak about this,
No.
and I've never told anybody, I am now coming up to 15. And that's when I kind of realized, because I got more freedom, I could go out the house when I wanted to.
Mm,
I stopped going into the bathroom. So I
mm,
stopped it at 15, and there was never a consequence of that. There was never a question of why. There was never but I just stopped it there. So from kind of 6, 7 to 15 on a regular basis, this was happening.
right.
Mm.
So, and was that stopping a conscious moment for you?
Well, yes, I was very conscious. It was very much, I don't need to do this anymore.
Mm,
I now have control because as a child you have no control, or you feel like
mm,
you have no control. And I
mm,
certainly felt I had no control of this. You
mm.
know. So yeah, 15 it stopped. 15 it stopped.
So quite a strong kind of stand you took for yourself. For
Yes,
yourself.
yes.
Testimony to you as a person.
Yeah.
At around that time too, you're also probably leaving school, are you?
So I'm coming up to leaving school. I've got no qualifications. Uh, And they're opening a big supermarket in the town, the local town where I live. They're only big. So I go for an interview and I get a temporary job, So there are no expectations from my family. University was never, an expectation. My parents never went to university. All they wanted was we got a job and we worked. So it didn't matter where we worked, what that looked like. You just got a job. And I got a temporary job working in this big supermarket, and it was bringing the trolleys in the car park. So I'm
Mm,
happy I got this job. And then a job comes up inside, uh, and they said we want to give you a trial on this job inside because it's a
mm,
permanent position. So I get this job working in the fresh food department, and I'm filling the freezers, and it's permanent. And then 6 months into this job, they say, we'd like to send you on a management training course.
oh, wow.
And I was like, oh, that's not going to happen. That's not going to happen.
Mm,
Because what you also have to kind of realize is, all of this is there's no confidence here. I have
yeah.
no confidence in my ability. I can't read. I can't even spell manager, and they
Mm,
want to send me on a management training course. And I'm like, no, no,
mm,
you've got the wrong person. I don't know what you're seeing, but that's not. And then, no, 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 you'll be fine. You'll be great. And I ended up sabotaging the job. I ended up getting the sack because I could not, I couldn't do it. I couldn't do it. So yeah, you know. So I've got no self-esteem, and I
mm,
still have no sexuality here. I mean, the term asexual is where I'm at. I have
mm.
no, yeah, interest in it.
And your friendships are just on the surface as well, would you say?
Oh, no, I had good friendships, but I had a friendship which was life changing. So after getting sacked from the supermarket, I had a couple of low-key jobs, and then my mum was working in a chicken factory. And my mum came home and said, I've got you an interview. And I'm like, I am not working in a chicken factory. She
Okay.
says, you're not living here if you're not paying board, you need to go
Okay. Yeah.
that. So you just go and you get a job. And the day I started, I was full of dread. I mean, it was just horrible. And the same day I started, there was another man started, and we both looked as terrified of each other. And he turned out to be my best friend, and he's been my
Oh.
best friend for 40 years, over 40 years. And when we talk about friendships, because I don't have a close family, my friends have been really important to me. And he was somebody who showed me unconditional positive regard. Do you know that thing about I never understood, and I couldn't understand why he wanted to be my friend and what that would look like. Because, uh, but yeah, he's been extremely important in my life, but also a time where it was confusing because he was gay,
Mm.
and we'd kind of been working together. Our friendship had started kind of developing. We'd be drinking. Alcohol played quite uh, a significant part. It was very cultural. You went drinking. I would be in the pub most nights, and we would
Yeah.
drink lots at weekends. So that was my environment. So we would go out drinking, and he lived in the big town, so I would kind of stay at his house some nights. And we're walking home one night, and he's like, I've got something to tell you. And I say, I've got something to tell you. And he tells me he was gay. And it just threw me. It was like I saw stars. Because I'd never met anybody who's gay. My experience of gay, wasn't positive,
Mm.
in the sense of I only associated my abuse with this. Uh,
Mm. Mm.
So it was really, really difficult. And this is a testimony of our friendship. I then told him what happened, and we just talked it out, which was we just became friends. But I want to kind of go back a little bit because the first time I told anybody, I was 18. So
Mm.
I'm up to 18 now, and I've
Mm.
never told anybody. And when I started working in the shop, we'd go out socially. And again, I'm kind of still internally a mess, but externally, hi,
Sure.
it's fine. I've got this facade. Anyway, I got friends. It was a guy who was going out with one of the girls we went out with, and they split up, and he came in and he asked if I wanted to go out for a drink. So he was kind of one of my first friends out of my school circle
Mhm.
kind of thing. And he came from a wealthy background. And I said, yeah, let's go out for a drink. And he turns up, picks me up in a sports car, a two-seater red sports car. And I get in this car and I'm like, oh my God. It was incredible. Anyway, we kind of hung out for a while, and he was dropping me off one night and he said to me, uh, he says, "Oh God, we were talking about you and just saying just how happy you are, and you don't have a care in the world, and it's just we just really all kind of respect you." And I just broke down. I just broke
Mm.
down and just said, "That's not who I am," you know. And that was really, his response was just brilliant. You know, he listened to me. He phoned me the next day. We didn't have mobile phones in this time, but he phoned me the next day. He picked me up after work. And I ended up staying at his house quite a lot.
Right.
And we would stay together. Now, we had a very good friendship, and he was looking at exploring his sexuality,
Hmm.
but I just couldn't. Again, I hadn't. This was an attractive man,
Yeah.
beautiful, and it was a very safe environment. We were sleeping in the same double bed together, but I was in too much of a mess to even, again, wasn't even on my radar,
Mm.
this. Uh, so it just indicates of kind of how I'm still in this fight flight mode,
Yeah.
just surviving.
Yeah.
So I go to the doctors and I tell them what's happened, and I get referred to a psychologist. So I'm like, great, I'm going to get some help. I'm going to get some help. And I had no problem with going to the doctors, and I had no problem with telling them, I
Mm. Mm.
need help. And I got referred to a psychologist, and I remember going, and I remember sitting, telling him the story, and he tells me that all I need to do is find the right woman, and everything will be okay.
Oh boy.
Nothing else. I never got a follow-up appointment. I never got anything else. It was, you just need to find the right woman. And I left just devastated,
Yeah.
just devastated because I'm like, no, he's wrong. This isn't this is something else.
Yeah.
He's wrong. My body's telling me, you know. So that was kind of difficult.
So
That was
nobody at this stage has said to you, Brian, what happened to you was very wrong. This
no,
is
absolutely not.
nobody has said that.
Well. Actually, I'm going to. Pete did. Pete
Yeah.
acknowledged it. Pete listened to me. Pete,
Yeah.
he 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 gave me a kind of really safe environment to just be.
Yeah.
Yeah. But from a professional point of view, no,
No.
not at all, not at all. And then I go to the chicken factory. So this has happened before the
Yeah.
chicken. And then I
Right.
go to the chicken factory and then I meet David, and David kind of tells me that he's gay, and I'm like, yeah, I'm comfortable with that. After we've kind of come to terms with it, yeah, I'm comfortable with that. With you being gay, it's not an issue for me.
Mm.
Uh, and he thought I was gay. That's why he was telling me, and I'm
Right.
not, you know. And I remember going to the first kind of gay bar with him, and we're in this gay bar, and I'm stood there, and God knows what I look like, and this guy came over to talk to me, and I just turned around and went, "Fuck off." Just
All
leave
right.
it to me. I'm okay with David, but don't anybody else talk to me.
Nobody approached me.
Yeah, it was because my fear,
Yeah.
was.
Mm.
But we did, alcohol, and I went to a few gay bars, and we would go to gay pubs, and we were very good friends. And there was never a sexual thing between us.
Mm.
It's always been a friendship. It's always been a very
Mm.
clear boundary of this is a friendship.
Mm.
Uh, and I don't know what, 21 now, where I probably sleep with the first man.
Right.
Uh, I'm in a gay pub, and right, okay, drunk, and go home with them. Uh, and yeah, just confusion, just whole confusion.
Mm.
And then then I were like, I'm only doing this because of what happened.
Uh,
So then that becomes, I wouldn't be gay if what hadn't have happened. So that was the next thing. There's also the internal homophobia. I was brought up in this very working class around lots of angry men. So I didn't like men. My association with men was not particularly good. I mean, apart from like David and meeting
Mm,
meeting Pete and David outside of
mm,
this environment, yeah, very. But yeah, I
mm.
didn't like men either because
No.
they were angry. Uh, so yeah. Yeah. I need to go back because one of the things I didn't say is I had to disclose to the family. So, when I'm kind of 30, I'm kind of in therapy,
Mm.
and my younger son has a child, has a boy, and as he's growing up, uh, I'm getting more and more anxious. I'm getting more and more
This
anxious.
is your younger brother.
Younger brother.
Your younger brother, got it.
Uh,
Yeah.
uh, so as his son's getting older, he's going down to his grandparents, and
Oh, yeah, yeah.
so I'm now in this situation. Now, this has never been disclosed in my family, so I'm still pretending everything's okay. As a therapist saying, you have to do something. You have to do something about this. Uh, so I said, right, I'm going to do this. So I went to my brother's thinking, right, I'll go and talk to my brother, tell him first, and he could come with me to tell my parents. And he wasn't in. So I had to go and do it on my own.
Mm,
And, you know, the choices I had was driving into a brick wall or going and kind of facing this. This was not an easy thing to do at any level. And I turn up, it's dark, go in, and I'm sat there, and my mum's saying, what is wrong? What's happening?
mm,
And so my dad's there, my mum's there, I'm kind of sat there, and I said, do you want to tell her? And he said, no. So I told my mum what happened. And and then I said, are you denying it? And he said, no. And I think for any survivor, that's really important.
mm,
Having acknowledged and having the perpetrator acknowledge that they did it.
mm,
Because he could have said no.
mm,
And if he had said no, I really don't know what that would have looked like.
mm,
There would have been a probably explosion in my head as
mm,
well. Anyway, but this is where I think we get to the realization of how damaged my mum is. Because he gets up and goes and makes a coffee. And the first thing my mum says to me is, I can't leave him. No, I'm really sorry, Brian. Oh my God. There was no empathy for me. There was absolutely no concern. So I'm sat here having gone through all of this, and again, still no support from my family. It's more about them and their survival, not mine. And she's like, I can't leave him. I'm like, I'm not asking you to leave him, but I'm like, internally, I'm just like, but you're supposed to protect me. You're supposed to be looking after me. And I didn't get any of that. And I never got any of that from my mom. Uh,
Did you say that to her?
no, because
Okay.
there was so I then said, right, I don't need to pretend anymore. I don't want to see you anymore. I don't want to see you anymore. So this is before I moved to Edinburgh.
Mm,
So, but I loved my mum, as I said, so I didn't want not to have a relationship. So I would pick her up and we would go out and we'd go and have coffee and things. And this is when I found out about her life and just how difficult her life was. And that she kind of had abuse and she also had physical abuse from her stepdad. But there's one point I'm sat with her and she says to me, Brian, but he never hit you. And
Mm.
and I'm like, well, what was happening to you, you didn't like it, did you? Like, no, no. Well, I didn't like it. This doesn't matter what form this looks like. It's abuse. And but she couldn't get it. And that was my realization. It's like, I am not going to get from my mum what I need. I, I'm not going to get it. And it's what you do with that. Because I'm desperate for her to want to love me. I'm desperate for her to make this okay. You know, even just to hug me and say I'm really sorry would have gone a long way. But she wasn't capable of that.
Mm.
Now, when I moved to Edinburgh, I kind of realised once I got the distance, actually, my mum's Scottish. My mum was brought up in a very, again, very working class, very, uh, her mum was not the nicest of women. Her dad died at 12. She had a stepdad who was an alcoholic who beat her. So she came from a difficult, and I started realizing she just couldn't. You know, it doesn't matter. She couldn't. So, you know, and I couldn't walk away. I couldn't, I thought about that's it. I'm cutting all ties with them, but I just couldn't
Mm.
because that would have caused me more angst, really,
Mm.
you know. Uh, so I had to, I know, I didn't have to, I chose to. I chose to forgive. And so I stopped wanting anything and I chose to kind of go, "Well, you did the best you did. It was really crap, but it was the best you did." But I had to move on because my anger was was burning me up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I see this as that point, I guess this would be your surrender point in a way, surrendering to the expectation that your mum would stand,
Yeah.
and she just couldn't, wouldn't, can't, whatever. And the forgiveness, it's really interesting because I think people are going to go, how could you forgive?
I know. I know.
Yeah.
And this is my story. This is nobody else's, and I'm not saying
Mm,
that,
mm,
this is how
sure.
I've dealt with it. This is just my
Mm,
story, and I'm not saying this is what you need to do and what you don't need to
no.
do. I'm just saying for me, once I made that decision, I stopped being angry
Mhm.
and I could move on to my healing. So I was stuck in this, but I then could move on to my healing, and yeah, and that's all it was really important for me. Now, I think there's lots of models out there, and I think kind of forgiveness and moving on, and it's kind of part of that. And I hadn't looked at any models. It was just like, this is what I need to do for me.
So, at this point, are you still working in the chicken factory, or because
Really?
you went on to actually become, I mean, this is the amazing thing, you went on to become an occupational therapist. I mean, this is an incredibly, you know, amazing job to be doing with people, very selfless, and you gave a lot of yourself to care for people. How did that happen?
I left the job. I kind of said, I can't do this anymore. After 3 years, I left the job.
Yeah.
And then a friend of mine who I went to school with was a student nurse
Hmm.
and said, Brian, there's a job in one of the wards. Would you be interested? I'm like, I don't know. Yeah. So I go and it wasn't an interview. I was just invited to have a chat to
Mm.
see. Anyway, I had this chat with this manager, and he takes me onto this ward, and it's full of the care of the elderly,
Yeah.
mentally ill. And he takes me onto this ward, and people are just walking around aimlessly and walking up to you. And he said, "What do you think?" And I'm like, "Yeah, well, be all right. It's all right. The job's yours." So I then get a job working as an auxiliary nurse in a hospital, uh, which was fine. I enjoyed that, but it didn't pay very well. And then I got a job working in a mental health team as a support worker. So I work with people with anxiety, depression,
Mm.
and at this time, I don't think I've sought any other help. I'm just carrying on with my life. My mood is like this,
Mm.
it goes up and it goes down. But when I'm in my dark bits, you know, I'm never not suicidal. I'm never not thinking about killing myself. This is around. Uh, and then I get a job working in this mental health team. Now, my manager was such a nurturing manager, and she helped develop my confidence. She really helped build me, and I kind of knew I grew within that environment.
Mm.
But we had a visitor to tell us about a service, and this service was for survivors of male sexual abuse. Now we got all of this abuse was coming out in the late 80s. It was getting talked about a little bit more, but it was more around girls. There was very little around about men. And there's this guy sat in front and telling me about this service that he's running, where they're counselling male survivors of sexual abuse. And I'm like, I'm in. So I made that phone call, uh, and he thinks I want to go and be a counsellor there. And I'm like,
Oh,
no,
okay. Yeah.
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 Oh, no, I want your service. I want your service. So again, there's a talking about, and they weren't professionals. They were all survivors, setting up a survivors group. So they were kind of trained in some kind of type counselling techniques. So I kind of went along and was there for 6 months. And then I ended up becoming a counsellor for the organisation as well. I then went into kind of long-term therapy. So kind of therapy was always around. So I'm always talking about it. I'm always kind of looking at it. But there's something still not right. It doesn't matter how much I talk about it. It's just this thing in my body that I'm kind of holding in my body. And I got referred to a cognitive behaviour specialist. So my counsellor made a referral to this cognitive behaviour therapist. And that was when my life changed. There's no doubt about it.
Okay. So could you s- uh, explain for us what cognitive behavioral therapy is?
So there's lots of different modalities within
Right.
therapy.
Yeah.
There's different strands. There's kind of person-centered where you just kind of go, you talk and they listen, and it's kind of
Mhm.
and then that's kind of what I was in. But cognitive behavior therapy actually has a lot of research behind it and a lot of evidence-based. And when I turned up for my first appointment, I'd recently had a suicide attempt. I'd taken quite a lot of tablets, and again was sick. But I think I was probably off work. I was off work, and I turned up at this appointment, and she says, "Right, I want you to go to your doctors. I want you to get on to antidepressants, and I want to see you 3 times a week. Uh, and how that worked for us was I would do a lot of writing. It was a lot of
Mhm.
uh, what I was thinking, just what was happening, what I was thinking. And then I would go back and I would read it out to her. And through that process, you challenge some of those thoughts. So your thoughts start getting challenged, or she would challenge them, or she would kind of say, "Oh, what do you think about that?" And is there another way you could have thought about that, or is there another way you could have?
Mhm.
Uh, and I knew when I was in it, something was changing, but I didn't know what. It was all very internal that was happening, but I couldn't say to you that's changed. But I started thinking differently. And since that time, and we're now, where am I? I'm now 35, 36 at this.
Mhm.
So I had a year of this cognitive behavior therapy. I've never been suicidal since. I've
Wow.
never had suicidal
Wow.
thoughts since. Uh, and my mood doesn't dip. I don't have these. I have a very kind of stable. Uh, if I start going down, I'm able to pull myself up very, very.
Right.
So this, I feel, was the starting point of me starting to have a life,
Yeah.
because
Wow. Wow. It's just so fascinating because I've heard of cognitive behavior therapy. I would never have associated it being a therapy that would help a condition like you had, post-traumatic, distress, and someone who's been abused, but it did. It
oh,
changed your life.
it was the starting point for me. It was. I've still got the post, I'm still, my body is still
PTSD.
not working properly. I'm
Yeah.
I'm I'm meeting guys. By this time, I had girlfriends. I joined a bisexual group because I was bisexual. And then I decided, actually, no, I'm gay. I have to come to terms with I'm gay. And at this time, Viagra then comes out,
No.
and so this was quite a life changer for me as well. So I would kind of meet guys, and Viagra, it meant my body would react.
Function.
However, I couldn't feel it.
Mhm.
So I would be with a guy, and I wouldn't know whether I got an erection or not because I couldn't feel it. My body was not responding.
Right.
So even though I had the CBT, my I'm still in my fight flight. But the
Right.
CBT, all that's done is change the way I think.
Okay.
So I'm much more kind of positive with where I'm kind of am with this. Then my life changed. Then my life changed. So by the end of the therapy, I met a friend, and they took me to Edinburgh. And I'd been to Edinburgh before, but when I got to Edinburgh the first time, I had this real kind of emotional, wow, I want to live here. I want to live here. And I'd never felt that about anything before. And then I went back with a friend who had some friends who lived there, and we had a weekend there, and I had this emotional pull. And now, again, I never thought there was a life outside of where I live. I'm still living where I live. I didn't have opportunities. I never felt like I had opportunities. It's really interesting where you're just surviving, so you don't know what opportunities there are out there. And I'm going to live here. I'm going to come and live in Edinburgh. Now, this is the end of the CBT. So I'm feeling a bit more confident. I'm feeling more positive in myself. And I'm going to go home and I'm going to put my house on the market because I bought a house, but in a very not desirable area.
Mm.
I'm going to go and I'm going to go and put my house on the market. And if I sell it, I'm going to move here. That was the goal. Now, not one house had sold on my street since I bought mine 15 years earlier. So the likelihood of me selling this house is pretty slim. And I've just done it up, and the estate agent says it's not going to sell. And I go, yeah, I'd want you to put it on the market. Put it on the market, and they said, I got a knock on the door about 2 weeks later, had a look round, and said, we'll have it. So I sold this house within 2 weeks.
Wow.
Said to them, I'm going to move to Edinburgh. So I'm selling everything. And if there's anything you would like, make me an offer. And they said, we'll have it all. We'll have it all. So I walked out of my house and I left pictures on the walls. I left kind of food in the cupboard. I left the bedding. I just left everything. And it was such a relief of
Wow.
walking out of this house, thinking, actually, this is just stuff. And I don't need stuff. I don't need any of this. It's not that important. And then work said that I could take a year off because I was like, I don't know what's going to happen. So I got a year to go and play around with this. The friend who'd taken me to Edinburgh said, okay, would you like to go away and do some woofing, which is worldwide organization for working on organic farms. So you go along and you exchange labor for food and accommodation. It's a real cheap way to travel. So yeah, let's go. So we go to Portugal and we were supposed to be going together and then she had a bereavement. So I ended up
Mm.
having it on my own. Which I think in hindsight was really positive for me, even though it was really difficult because I'd never traveled on my own before. I'd never
Mhm.
done that before. Uh, but I got there and I got to meet the people who were there. And one of the people who were there was somebody who lived in Edinburgh, who was also traveling. So she said, when you get here, give me a call. Give me a call. So that was what happened. I went home, moved to Edinburgh, got a house, got a flat, got a room in somebody's house. And this is me coming out now. So I'm consciously saying I am not pretending. Because even though I'd come out to my friends, I hadn't really come out. I hadn't come out to people at work. I hadn't
Mm.
like I'm coming out and I'm not hiding this. So Edinburgh was just the right thing. The
Mm.
right thing because all of these doors just kept opening for
Mm.
me. And I had a great life in Edinburgh. I was introduced to lots of new things into galleries and music and it was beautiful. So I was starting to live and grow as a person. Uh,
Mm.
So then I saw an advert in the big issue saying, would you like a second chance of education? Now, I always tried with my spelling, I always tried reading, I always had a book to read, I always was looking at something. And would you like a second chance of education? So I go along to this stately home on the outskirts of Edinburgh, and it's an access course. Uh, and it's free. And you can go and live there. You have your own room. You get 3 meals a day, and you get educated in the grounds of this beautiful kind of stately home. And I'm like, well, first I'm like, what this? Is it a cult? There's something happening here. There's something not right. I don't know. It's just it's funded through the unions. So I'm like,
Mm.
I do my first assignment. And they say, we think you're dyslexic. We think you're dyslexic. Can we test you? So I got a formal diagnosis of kind of dyslexia at this point, which threw me in the sense of I'm never going to get better, it's never going to improve,
Mm,
but it also now makes sense.
mm.
Uh, I passed the access course
Of
because
course you did.
well, they now give me support. So I now dictate, I now do all of these things.
Mm.
And they say to me, you can now go to university. And this was, I didn't go on this course for that. I went just to try and improve my English. And suddenly I have access to university. And I know what a life-changing thing this can be, you know.
Mm.
So I go to the careers officer and I'm like, I don't really know what I'm doing. And and they said, what have you done? Okay, the elderly, I've worked with physical, I've worked with mental health, I've kind of, and he said, have you ever thought about being an occupational therapist? And I went, that is a really good shout. Because what you get is you get a profession. Go
Mhm.
study, then I get a career. And so
Mhm.
uh so I go and do that. I have a great time being a student because I know I've worked since I left school. I'm now in this luxury of being able to study, do you know?
Yeah,
And
it's fantastic.
it's
Yeah.
such a luxury, and I know how important this is. And because I have this dyslexic, you know, diagnosis, it means I get support.
Mm.
And I pass. I pass after 3 years. I go into therapy. I get access to free therapy while I'm there. But again, there's something holding in my body. There's just this. So even though I'm getting better in, I'm having a good time, I'm having a great time, I'm still not having relationships. So I've never had a relationship. I've never had a long-term, meaningful relationship with
To
any
this day.
to this day. I'm now 60. Uh, I had the opportunity to buy a flat, and uh, I couldn't raise the capital. I couldn't raise the deposit for this. And what happened was a friend that I'd met, I'd been to a gay men's buddy retreat, and I'd kind of met this older man, and I'm not going to name him because he probably doesn't want to be named, but uh, he would come and visit, and we would again, it was just this friendship. And I said to him, "No, I'm not going to be able to buy the flat." I was living in the flat at the time when it kind of came up for sale. It was a friend of mine's. Uh, so I was living there, and I knew I wanted to live here. It was just really a nice place. And he said, how much do you want? And I told him, and he gave me the deposit without anything else. And I said, I'll give it you back. No, it's a gift. And it was a true gift. And
Mm.
again, it was a life-changing point because now I have my own
Mm.
place. Uh, so that helps me settle. It helps me give me security. I'm able to build my career. Uh, And then I outgrow. I outgrow this. After 13 years, I'm in this flat and I just outgrow it. It's a small flat. And I feel like I've grown as a person and I feel like
Mm.
I just need to go. So I decide I want to go and get a two-bedroom property. Uh, and so I start looking, and this friend said to me, I don't want you to increase your mortgage. So I will give you whatever the difference is when you move. Which was again
Unreal.
incredible generosity and again life changing,
Mm.
absolutely changing. Uh, so I then move again, get into a position where I have an extra room. I start renting it out. Anyway, then COVID hits. So this is again a key point I think in lots of people's lives, and
Mm.
I was living on my own at this time. And I knew that this was going to be quite crucial. So I needed to look after myself. I'm living on my own. I'm not going to work, but I'm working, not working type
Yeah.
thing. It's
Yeah.
online. I have to start exercising. I have to start meditating because, again, exercise has been quite important to me. So even before I moved to Edinburgh, I would go to the gym on a regular basis. I would kind of run. I would have to do something physical.
Mm.
Swimming is quite important for me because that was the only way I could kind of release any kind of tension that I
Yeah.
held in my body. So exercise was it's not just one thing, I suppose, it's a multiple of things, but exercise
Yeah.
is in there as well. And I think that's a really important factor in my life. Uh, so I knew that I needed to start meditating. I knew I needed to start doing yoga, and I started running. I started doing the five couch to 5K. I got a bike and I was going out cycling. And suddenly I'm feeling great. Like
Wow.
the first time I'm feeling great
In your body.
in my body,
Yeah.
doing a lot of exercise. And I remember walking down the road and seeing this child and this parent and looking at them and having this smile from inside. It was just beautiful just seeing a child smiling. And I just had this connection and I just smiled from inside. And I was like, oh my God, I wonder what it's like not to work. I associated this. So I'm like, I'm now driven to not want to work. I want to stop work because I want to, because it's like, this is the first time I've had this feeling,
Mm.
I'm in my body, I'm actually feeling,
Mm.
I need to stop work, need to stop work. The other thing, kind of at this time, this PTSD is now kind of coming to the fore in the sense of people are talking about PTSD,
Mm.
people are
Mm.
talking
Mm.
about it as a condition and how disabling it is.
Mm.
And I'm also hearing about how people are getting treated for it, and it's
Mm.
not talk therapy. It's using psychoactives. It's using mushrooms. It's using acid. It's
Mm. Mm.
using
Mm. Mm.
and
Mm.
and I'm like, yeah, that's what I need. That's because I've talked and I've talked and I've talked. I
Yeah.
need something to switch this off.
Yeah.
So I started believing in this. And there was a place in London that was doing it. So I wrote to them and I said, this is my background and this is how I feel and can I join? you know? And they said, no, we're only working with people who are coming out of the army at the moment. We're not looking at survivors. But that was the first time I kind of heard about this kind of drug
Mm.
use, kind of therapy. So that's kind of in my head as well. So COVID hits. I then have more money because I'm not going out because I was quite sociable. I
Mm.
then get a lodger that I wasn't expecting. So I've got all this money. So I'm like putting it on my mortgage because as soon as I pay my mortgage off, I'm finishing work. That's, you know, uh, and I managed to do that quickly. I managed to do that quite quickly. So I'm now 58 and I'm mortgage free. And I'm like, okay, I got this flat now, very nice flat in Leith in Edinburgh.
Mm. It's beautiful. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. And so I've got this rentable commodity, so I've got an income.
Mm.
And because I worked in health and social care for quite a long time, I had a small pension. So
Mm.
between my pension and my rent, I would have enough income, and I decided I would just travel. So I rented my flat out, and this is 19 months ago. 19 months ago,
Here you are.
I rented my flat out and I've just been traveling. Now, I want to talk about something that was really had, again, changed things. So as I was traveling, I'm kind of putting it out there into the kind of community, using Facebook, solo traveler, looking at meeting other people, looking at volunteering opportunities. So I'm just looking at what this might look like. And I'm in Alice Springs, and I get a message saying I'm also in Alice Springs and that I'm a traveller, and if you'd like to meet for coffee, we'll kind of meet. But yeah, fine. So I met this guy, and I was telling him that I was interested in uh, volunteering, and he said, "Oh, have you ever heard of a festival called Confest?" Um, no. And then he said, "Oh, what you like around nudity?" Oh, don't know. I'm from the UK. We don't do nudity really. Then what you like around drugs? And I'm like, I don't know. I've never really done it, but in my head, I'm going, this could be a great place to explore drugs. So I sign up to go and volunteer at this festival. And so I'm there for a month before the festival starts. So I get to meet people and I get to know people and the festival starts. And I'm saying to people, I want drugs. I'm looking, exploring drugs in a therapeutic way. Not told them why, but I'm looking at exploring this in a therapeutic way. And this is an environment where people are talking very openly about their experience, uh, about psychedelic drugs and what that looks like. So it felt like a real safe place to do it. And I had some mushrooms. And I had an amazing experience on these mushrooms where I call it my brine in Wonderland moment type thing. So I take these mushrooms and so this festival is a big festival and there's lots of kind of villages. So there's a queer village, there's a naked village, there's a family village, there's a chess village. There's all
Okay, it's everything there.
there's all of these.
I
So
can't believe there's a chess village in
there is a chess
there.
village, absolutely. There's an arts village. There's all of it, and so I decided because I've been there a while now. I'm getting comfortable with the environment. I'm take these mushrooms and I'm going to explore being naked. So a day of kind of being naked. And so I take these tablets, these mushrooms, and everybody's swimming naked. There's it's a little beach, and they're all swimming. I go, and I kind of go with a cleansing. I kind of go and try and kind of like, it's, I think this says, what's the purpose? You're going in with
Mm.
a
With an
purpose.
intention and yeah, yeah.
So I'm going in with cleansing and kind of being in my body and being present. And I come out and there's a sauna there, and I go into this sauna and it's full of all these naked people. And one of them is a man that I've kind of been attracted to, that I've had conversations with, who stood there naked in front of me, lots of naked bodies in front of me, and then they all start chanting. And I'm just
Beautiful.
really being very conscious and trying to kind of be in my body and letting it absorb and this sound. And after that, I'm kind of sat there going, this is just wonderful. I'm having a great time. I'm having a great experience. And then this guy that I was just talking about came and sat next to me. He said, oh, how you doing? And I'm like, well, I was just thinking how good it was and how you just made it 10 times better. And he said, oh, do you want to go and have a game of chess? So we go and have a game of chess together. And I'm kind of still naked and I stay naked. And what was really nice about this experience was uh, I, we just chatted, we had stories, but he let me bask in his beauty. I found him attractive. And it wasn't, again, it wasn't sexual, but it allowed me to find another man attractive. Allowed me to explore this. I can,
Feeling. Yeah.
it allowed me to connect with my feelings.
Yeah.
Now, which was great. There's another experience I had a year later. So I went back to the same festival.
Mm.
I've been traveling a year, and what was really interesting, I went back and I felt different after traveling for a year. I felt calmer in myself.
Mm.
So I was having a very different experience. Even though I'm kind of there the first time, I'm still trying to get out. So there's still this, I'm here, but I want to get out of this situation as soon as I can. I went back the second time. I wasn't feeling that. I wasn't feeling I wanted to escape.
Mm.
And I was meeting all of these people that I'd met the year before, and I was meeting new people, and they were all just lovely people and lots of hugging. And I took mushrooms again. And I was on my own this time. I was in my tent, and I got this overwhelming feeling of love. I was just love from these people, and I could feel it. I could feel it in my body, but I was also very conscious that I needed to give it back.
Mm.
So I was in this mushroom haze, whatever it is, but I was in a swirl of love, just swirl of giving and receiving and giving and receiving.
Mm.
And that has changed something in me. There's no doubt
Mm.
about that experience has changed how I am now in the world because I am more relaxed within myself. I am more comfortable. And
Brian, you're here doing this.
oh, I'm
You,
having an amazing time.
you know, but you're here doing this today
Yes,
with me too.
yes,
It's opened you up.
yes, without a
Yeah.
doubt, without a doubt.
Yeah.
There's a song, there's an album that I've been listening by Ben Platt, and there's a song in it called "The Right Kind of Reckless."
I
And
love that. Good
there
title.
are just some beautiful lines in it, but one of the lines is, "I refuse to lose my sense of wonder."
Oh.
And I just think I've always kind of been very interested in life. I've always been interested in people when I meet them, even though
Mm.
all of this shit's going on, I still engage. And I just, that mantra, I refuse to lose this sense of wonder, because we're in such a wonderful world.
And
You-
that childlike wonder, that
Oh,
childlike wonder that is innocent and open and and that's, I guess, what was suppressed. I'm not going to say it was taken away because you still have it.
yeah.
Was suppressed in you,
Yes.
and now
And it's
it's
definitely coming out.
available. Yeah,
It's definitely coming out.
yeah.
I've just been traveling around New Zealand with a friend in a camper van, and I've just had these amazing experiences and I've just allowed myself to enjoy this and getting really excited. Oh, we're going to go do this today.
Oh, I
Oh,
love it.
kind of thing. And the other thing is I want to kind of say that I had a beautiful experience with a mutual friend of ours. So
Mm.
while I was traveling, I met somebody called Jason, and he invited me to go and stay with him for a while. And what this allowed me to do was uh, explore being around another gay man and explore my intimacy, not sex, intimacy with another man. And we had a wonderful experience. We had just a wonderful time. And when I left, my best friend said to me, when you go to New Zealand, you're going to fall in love. I think you're going to fall in love with somebody. And as I was leaving, I thought, I'm falling in love with myself. For the first time, I'm falling in love with myself.
Yay.
Now, while I was with Jason, we would be talking and sharing stories, and we would see an eagle, and he would say, "That's a confirmation. That's a confirmation." And I had this thought, I'm falling in love with myself. And I turned the corner and there was an eagle. I think,
Oh, such a beautiful confirmation and perfect for you. Your alignment, coming into alignment, it's what we're all trying to do, you
yeah,
know,
yeah,
is happening, and it has happened and is happening, will continue to. Just thank you for sharing it all here. I really appreciate it. I think others will as well. And and I look forward to staying in touch with you, Brian, because it's been such a pleasure meeting you. And I want to know,
right.
I want to know what wondrous things are happening for you, because I know that is going to be your life from here on.
Mm,
This is this is how it's going to unfold. It's how it's unfolding right now. It's how it will continue.
yeah, it's an amazing journey I'm on.
Yeah. And
Mm,
thank you. Thank you so
no,
much.
thank
And is there anything you would say to someone who has kept it all inside?
Just find somebody you trust. I think trust is important. I also think therapies are useful. It's not the be all and end all, but
Mm.
finding somebody you can trust, because that's important to feel
To
safe.
share it with, yeah.
With.
Yeah.
Absolutely. But therapy, and therapy's much better now, and there's much more understanding, and hopefully they're not going to be sent away with a negative comment.
Yeah,
So
like you were.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
But if you've got a partner, and you're in this relationship, just you feel safe, share it, because it is so much more beneficial to stop holding on to it, to be able to move forward.
Yeah, letting go.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Thank you. I so appreciate this. I know others want to. Lots of love.